everyone, welcome once again to Pixar Discussions. I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm the Geoff.
Jeff, welcome back.
Welcome.
We're finally
back.
Welcome back. We're finally doing one of these again. Yay.
At long last.
And how have you been doing? Everything good?
I think so.
It seems like it's been a good long time since we've seen you, Jeff.
Been kind of underwater for a couple of months.
Oh no.
It would have not have been as scary if I was able to swim.
So, today we're going to talk about Ratatouille, which
sounds like rat and patootie. Rat patootie.
Which, in a lot of ways, is, I think, is still to date the most unique and most original of the entire Pixar line.
I'll buy that.
It's not my favorite, but it is absolutely the most unpredictable and most unformulaic thing I have ever seen in animation. Yeah. Like, I'm gonna go that far. This is such a different film.
You don't know where it's like some of the better episodes of The Simpsons or Family Guy or some of those shows where you just have no idea what the thing really is going to end up being about. Just things lead to other things, and they lead to other things. The difference being that
it's more elegant.
In Ratatouille, that winding, wiggling path of topic really does have a structure and has closure and shows a lot of evidence of having been thought out very carefully.
Yes.
As opposed to being sort of thrown at the wall like spaghetti. And
are you gonna do that? Is everything you come up with gonna just end with a food item?
Well, it seems like eventually that'd get hard to swallow, but that kind of pun is my bread and butter, so you never know.
This is one of those movies that that when they first started putting trailers out for it, I was like, I mean, it's not like Up where I had no idea what the heck I was looking at, but I was just like, oh, okay, so it's a movie about talking rats. We've had these before. We've had American Tail. Yeah. We've had these before, and I don't really care. And okay, I hope it's good. It's Pixar, so I'll go. I think a lot of people probably had that. It was just like it seemed kind of it seemed like kind of underwhelming. It didn't seem real inspired from the trailers. Is okay, it's a rat in Paris that cooks things. All right, and then I went, and I think the deal is this isn't exactly the right way to put this, but in a way, this is almost an art house film in disguise, right? Like this is a really intimate kind of character piece with dual protagonists, and kind of wrapped up in the trappings of a big Disney Pixar film that has those kinds of production values. But this is a little indie film.
Yeah, it's like a French film.
but also entirely American, which we'll get into. But can you kind of see what I'm saying?
Yeah, right down to the score cues lifted from American in Paris.
Good point. I'm sure there are plenty of references to things here that I would never pick up on because I'm not into a lot of indie films and into a lot of foreign stuff. I bet there's callbacks and things all over the place to this.
Seems likely.
This is one of those things where when we go through an entire list of a certain kind of movie, I will be somewhat more or less qualified to talk about each of them. But I don't know, man. This movie hit me in a place when I first saw it, and the thing is, it's been a long time. I only watched this once. I don't know why I really liked it. I just never got around to seeing it again. And I had the exact same experience with it this time, especially because it's been 5 years, so I got to forget a couple of the revelations.
Yeah.
And I completely forgot, for instance, where the critic gets to by the end. And again, such an unpredictable film. I love how it is telegraphed so hard how evil this guy is supposed to be. By the end of the movie, he's my favorite character. And I don't mean like love to hate him kind of character. He's the best character in the film. Well, for me, yeah, I love that guy.
Pixar is very good about making their villains interesting and watchable, whether they remain villains or not, and whether their arc, no matter what direction their arc pays off in, they make their villains, as they do their supporting characters and the wacky neighbor guy and the buddy guy, interesting people. I mean, you have moments to feel for both of the big villains in this film.
Yeah.
You have moments to really feel for all the minor characters, and just every 15 minutes or so you get a new character to empathize with in this story. Which is one of the things I love about the way they do this, where nobody gets to be just a cardboard evil. Everybody, even the worst people in the universe, and
although the restaurant owner gets real
Skinner,
close, right?
I mean, but even Skinner, you get to see him suffer.
Oh yeah,
and you get to see him helpless and broken and sad, and
I don't think I ever fully empathize with that character. I mean, it's almost like we're being rewarded for having to watch him be like so conniving throughout the whole thing. We're like, he deserves that, so we're gonna kind of,
in fact, with knives.
So we're gonna kind of applaud this
stab in the dark.
This guy finally getting what was coming to him, much like Sid in the Toy Story movies, right? Where I mean, what I'm saying is you can see why he is the way he is. He's not two-dimensional in the sense of the movie, and just it doesn't feel like the movie just invented this cardboard guy to be the bad guy, and that's just the purpose he serves. It came from a place. We talked about that with Toy Story with the Sid character, where it's like he looks like he had a bad upbringing, and that's what got him to that place. So I mean, like we see how in this world these people are fleshed out and seem like real people, even if we don't fully get to know them. But even still, I think that I spent the whole movie with that guy hoping something bad would happen to him. Like I think the movie wanted me to have that.
But then when it did, it really was, and you got to see that despite being a real piece of junk as a human being, and named for one of the evilest people in the history of psychology.
Good point. I didn't even pick up on that naturally. Good call.
He's
I was hung up on obvious things like ego,
right. Or Skinner from 100 and something Dalmatians,
or Skinner from X-Files. There's so many Skinners in different places that it's hard for me to immediately go to
they're all evil.
To what, BF Skinner, right?
Yeah. Skinner.
It's hard for me to immediately go there because there's so many. No, the guy in X-Files is not evil, but yeah.
Exception to every.
There's a period there where you're supposed to wonder which might be the reason the namesake is there, but eventually, he's the assistant director of the FBI. He's a good guy. But anyway.
I have to chew on that. But even Skinner in here, I mean, you see that he's still a human being, and you see that things hurt him. And
his actions have consequences, and so which I think are directly proportionate to what he does, right? And that's true of all of these.
Everyone's actions have consequences.
I mean, even the good guys, when they make mistakes, they come back to haunt them.
And not in a watery way, but I mean, at full flavor.
Yeah, in profound ways that for at least our main characters change them for the better.
Because
even some of the minor ones, right? Yeah. Go ahead.
Because there are three. There's Remy, the rat, and we start with him. Then we are introduced to Linguini, and he becomes our character. And then we have Colette. And she is another protagonist. She has an arc.
Yeah,
she goes someplace. Right. We travel with her, and
it could
her
be
story
argued that
is
she
this
could
movie.
It could be argued that she could use more screen time, but I don't know where it would come from. Is the thing. I think that it is pretty natural how often you see these people, but I think it would be easy for people to not pick up on her character arc given the sheer amount of time we spend with the two protagonists that feel like the people that we're most supposed to be following.
Well, and granted that the protagonists are introduced to us one at a time.
Yeah.
With a very careful and gradual route into getting to know them, so that we really do get a chance to get to know them. That already puts her a certain distance into the film by the clock.
One of the things I like about that format or that structure is that we see the world through this rat's eyes at the beginning. I think it would be very easy to walk into this movie and assume that he's going to be our eyes and ears through the whole movie, and that's it. That's one of the ways that the movie subverts our expectations. We don't know we're going to get to see the human world from the human perspective, or the rat world from the human perspective. Even, and so you start with this like very a small, from the ground up kind of perspective, which I think makes Paris feel even bigger than it is, which I really, really like. And then we get to our human character, and we get to see how he perceives the human world, but also eventually kind of the rat world. But I feel like we need to get in that guy's head in order to appreciate the way in which they're the same. You need that. And then you get with Colette a little bit. I do feel like we still pretty much see her from the eyes of either the rat or the human protagonist, right? Like
to a great extent.
I don't like, she does have an arc, but I don't think that we're ever fully in her head.
Yeah, she's certainly the third.
But yeah, she's definitely the third wheel.
But I don't know. I would certainly say that she has enough going on in her story to that you could take this story through her eyes.
Sure, absolutely you could.
You maybe couldn't with any of the other members of the kitchen staff,
mostly because they don't,
or the other rats.
They don't appear in enough of the most important sequences. Is the only reason.
But they are trying to get a female character to work right, and this is maybe the moment to point out that Pixar has not done female characters yet. To any extent. That's
a really good point. Yeah, we've not really broached even a lot of romances yet.
No, there's
little hints of them.
I mean, you have what's her bumper in Cars?
Yeah, you've
Porsche,
got
Sally.
Did you just say what's her bumper?
Yeah,
I enjoyed that.
Something to fuel discussion later on. But
you're right.
She doesn't have much of an arc. She's not really a character. She's a character.
She's a love interest, but yeah, great point.
The yarnhead from Toy Story 2.
Yep.
What's her name? Jessie. Messy Jessie.
Same sort of thing there.
But there again, clearly a side and a background figure for the majority of what she does in that film. Important, but not a viewpoint character or an arcing character the way that Colette here is. And yes, she is less of one than our two buddies, Remy and what's his name, Linguini.
Mm-hmm.
And having trouble with the names today.
Yeah, me too. Well, this is one of those movies
Maybe it's
where
because they're all French.
I was going to say, I don't find the names especially memorable. It's hard to keep them in my head, but that's just because they're, foreign to me.
You don't see them, you don't hear them spoken.
You hear them all the time, yeah. Oh, that's true, yeah. Well, and that's because we have a lot of really natural dialogue where people don't constantly name drop each other because people in real life don't do that. That's what I like about this movie. Yeah, that's one of the things I really like about this movie is how incredibly organic it feels. Everybody feels like a real person in this. And I've said that about the other Pixar movies, but what's important to note here is that we have a more real-looking world than we've ever had before. I mean, Incredibles... And
it's all humans.
Incredibles, we had human beings.
Well, that's true.
But but it was a superhero world. It was a more heightened world. There's heightened here, don't get me wrong. It is not possible for a rat to pull your hair and control you like a joystick.
You ever tried it?
No, but nerve endings don't work like that.
Can you justify this empirically?
I can buy certain bits of it, but clearly it's a cartoon thing, and I like it. Don't get me wrong.
That's a very Tex Avery concept, actually.
Considering the fact that we are in.
Linguini's a very Tex Avery character.
I mean, I do feel like we have. Yeah, I agree with you, but I do feel like we have a universe with its own internal logic where we know what the rules are and it doesn't break them. We don't have like somebody who runs off a cliff and then stands there for a minute and then look down and then falls. That doesn't happen. So
waiting for that.
When weird kind of cartoon things happen, they're established as being rules that work in this universe. And the good thing is it's not that the only strange, unrealistic thing is the hair pulling thing. We do, of course, have personified rats that can act like people. So, we have one really big thing, and I do appreciate the fact that it's grounded enough that the human beings don't get to see the mice talking, or the rats talking to each other, but rats do not have the kinds of brains that would allow them to run into a kitchen and start stirring things and making food. Like that would never...
Don't they?
Would you stop it? Well,
Skinner would argue that they don't need to have brains to do this. They just have to be properly conditioned through experience and rewards and punishments.
Oh, okay. Well, that's interesting. But we know, of course, that that's not what exactly happens with Remy.
True. And that would be.
We know that Remy watched a cooking
evil
show.
Psychology.
Yeah, and we also know that Remy watched a cooking show, and that's how he learned things, and that he also can read a little bit. And we know that rats probably do not have the brains capable of doing that. So anyway, you're just being silly right now.
Well, one of the things that this movie does with the talking animal, funny animal.
Are you trying to tell me that you think that this movie is entirely plausible?
No.
Okay, good.
That would be just icing on the cake.
I just want to establish that before we move on.
Yeah. Well, no. I just wondered if you had a sauce for that. One of the things this movie does that the most respectable of funny animal kind of movies do is preserve the possibility of an illusion.
Yeah.
The animals have this sophisticated life, the secret life that we don't know about. But the humans in this world are allowed to remain completely unaware of it. And it always takes place in such a way that the humans in that world could be unaware of it.
But those two things do converge at the end of this one.
Which means...
in a way they don't usually in something like this, right?
Like
I mean, the humans don't get to hear them talking to each other because presumably they speak a different kind of language. But you would immediately get the sense as a human being, okay, these rats have a society that is reminiscent of ours, given the way they're able to delegate and make the kitchen stuff happen at the end, right?
And like the denouement of Toy Story, where the toys break the rule.
Yeah.
It's clearly a violation of the rule, and its scope has to be limited in some way.
And it is
the toys
limited.
Can only
but
move.
Here it's interesting because it's ongoing, right? Because when they get to the end, the rats are working with the humans ad nauseum by when we're finished. I mean, we have
only 2 of them.
Yeah, but that's enough.
I mean,
but I roll his...
And the first violation comes when Linguini has Remy in the jar.
Yeah.
And he's nodding his head.
Right. And they're communicating, right?
I mean, the violation. But even then, it's limited. Linguini and nobody else has a bridge of communication with Remy and no other rat.
Mm-hmm.
And towards the end... Linguini reveals his secret to the rest of the staff of the restaurant, none of whom believe him.
Right.
Until Colette comes back.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like by the end, Colette is in on this relationship somehow, although presumably she does not allow the rat to control her by pulling her hair.
We see them. We see them cook together.
But we see them work together in the kitchen. And
yeah. And you have to assume, and the critic at the end knows
that's true,
that the rat is cooking because he doesn't mention it in his. By the way, one of the best. I mean, I know it was for a movie, but one of the best written critiques I've ever heard. I mean, like the language is fantastic. Yeah. I want to talk about that in a minute because I love what this movie says about criticism. By the way, that's something that hit me in a place.
It should.
Yeah, but you get to the. We'll talk about that in a minute. You get to the end of this movie, and remember that he puts up the money for the bistro.
Right.
He like the rat is the reason he loses his job as a critic, and because we're told that, and then he is. I think they say that he puts up the money for this bistro, and then he goes there and eats every day or a lot.
But there again,
and remember, he looks through the door and sees the rat, and they have a
But there again, of 3 people who know about the rat,
and their entire kitchen would have to, whoever they've hired back there,
and whoever, I don't know, maybe they have a kid or something. We don't know how much time passes.
That's true. We don't. That's a good point.
Then again, given how long rats live, it can't be all that long.
That was a thing that I wondered about just a little bit. Where I was like, well, they kind of act like they have a permanent solution, but rats don't live very long.
Yeah, even kept rats.
They kind of gloss over that.
Ego learns the secret, but he loses all of his credibility, and no one will listen to him again about it.
Well, that's a great point, right? Yeah, you're saying they're not disturbing the status quo of the world at large.
The world in general is still, at the end of this movie, going to remain ignorant that rats are actually intelligent, know how to cook, or at least a few of them do, and some of them are at least clever enough to follow the orders of the one who does.
Sure.
Should the need arise. Nor that they have a complex society, nor that they have boats set up and ready for when they're going to need to evacuate the crazy old lady's house.
The crazy old lady,
like she would be
shoots
a
up
crazy cat lady
own house trying to kill a rat.
She doesn't have cats, and of course if she did, she probably wouldn't have a colony of 100 rats living in her attic.
And do you agree with me when I say that she looks like the female version of the chess player guy?
Yes. She's geriatric.
I think that was... She might even be geriatric. Ooh.
Yeah. Geriatric. But Clemmy breaks the illusion by establishing communication with him. But no one's going to believe him. I mean, he tries to tell so many people, most of whom just write him off as completely off his mind. Like the whole staff of the restaurant walking out when he reveals that to them. And then Colette comes back, so now she's in. But she's not going to tell the rest of the world.
Yeah.
The critic
and
finally
the critic because
let in at the end.
And nobody would believe him anyway because he's lost all his credibility.
By kind of at least partly revealing it loses him his job and his credibility.
Well, I don't think he really says anything about the rat anywhere.
And he not in what we hear as the review.
And he certainly doesn't say anything in the review. And I get the sense that we hear the entirety of the review.
Yeah, it doesn't seem edited.
It doesn't seem edited at all.
Edited for television.
No, he loses his credibility because he talked up a restaurant that a week later got shut down because of rats. That's...
A day later.
Oh, was it? It wasn't even that... Oh, that's right, because they had to let
it's almost immediate.
They had to let the bad guys out of the closet, yeah.
Yeah, the officials would act with some promptness.
Sure, naturally.
If the health inspector...
Well, I really love that I love how down to earth that is, where he says, it doesn't matter how good your food is, they find out you got rats in the kitchen, you're done. Yeah.
Which is true.
Which is true, yeah. So what you're saying is, by preserving the illusion...
Some of the places I've eaten at, I kind of wonder if that really is true.
So what you're saying is, by preserving the illusion, we're trying to kind of create the facade that this could theoretically happen in the real world if there was something going on we didn't know about. And when you get to the end and that hasn't been disturbed, it feels so like it's a heightened universe only in the sense that if this were to actually happen, we would discover that ours was as well.
Exactly. It allows it's designed and it's used in stories on some level aimed to children, and it's designed to allow a person to dream that the world is more than it is, or that there are things in the world that we don't know about.
Yeah, and it's more than simple suspension of disbelief, right? It's more than just, in this world this can happen. It's that it wants us to imagine that in ours it could too. Toy Story is exactly the same way.
Yeah.
In fact, would you make the case that most, if not all, Pixar films are this way? Monsters Incorporated, certainly this way. That's where the monsters in our imaginations came from. Okay, you have the same thing with Finding Nemo. Cars, not so much. That's the only one that I can think of, though. And then like WALL-E, that's set in the future.
Well, this is as old as stories.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just saying that this is a consistent thing with the studio, that they like to tell these kinds of stories, and I think that that's part of where
they do them well.
I guess what I'm trying to get at is this maybe part of the secret to their success? over and over and over again is that by doing those kinds of stories, you're bridging the gap, constantly making things more accessible to a wider audience, by making something that both kids and adults can more get behind.
And by bridging imagination and reality as closely as they do, they make imagination more accessible to people who in real life have none.
Yeah.
Which you need to do if you're in the business of selling imaginative fiction, because there are plenty of people walking around who truly have no imagination.
Yeah, sure.
And
we need to be inspiring that in people.
We need to be helping those people.
Geoff, I think this is the most sophisticated storytelling that's in these movies, if at a personal level. I really think that. Now, I single it out that way because it's such a different kind of story from a lot of the other ones. It doesn't have the grandioseness of what some of the other ones are doing.
It's certainly the most crinkly storyline of any of the Pixar movies so far.
But it's also not remotely, in my opinion, a kid's story at all. It's not really, right? I mean, like, we have a whole lot of commentary about like corporate politics and those sorts of things. And I mean, I'm not saying you can't tell those sorts of things in a kid's story, but like this thing is bold in some of the stuff it does. You know, we've got a boss getting a crew member drunk trying to get information out of him. You don't see that in children's fiction, right? This thing opens in 15 minutes with this guy died and here is his supposed ghost, but not really. And I mean, like, you know, it references alcohol, it references death, it like it's for kids, but it's sophisticated fiction that's kind of for. So what I mean is, it's not a kid's story, but it's a story that is aimed at children in a way that I think it should be. You know what I'm saying? Like,
well, it's a movie that has plenty in it for a very young viewer to enjoy.
And nothing that is straight up inappropriate for them, I don't think.
Yeah, but which is not confined to anyone's estimation of a 4 or 5 year old's ability to attend to and follow a story, which is the mistake that so many things make. They say, well, we got to sell this to kids. Kids have to get this, and that means we mustn't do anything too complex for kids. Well, guess what? 4, 5, 6 year old kids, everything's too complex for them in one way.
Sure.
A 5-minute cartoon is testing their attention span in one way.
But in another way, you can elevate them by talking just over their heads so that they have to reach you. I've always believed that. I think that's very important. That's a very important thing to do in these sorts of films. And that's also, we don't need to sugarcoat reality. No. We really don't. We don't need to be shocking. We don't need to, like, you know, make everything super ultra violent and super ultra explicit. But at the same time, I don't think that we should blanket statement, you can never have alcohol in a kids movie. I don't like that kind of thing, because it's something that really exists. Let's not shelter kids from what's there. Let's just put it on the screen and let them think for themselves, right?
Yeah, and
it's just a part of the greater whole.
It's treated realistically, and realistic decisions, both good and bad, are in this story, and they have consequences that they should.
Yeah.
Which that'd be the realism side of the coin.
I just find that incredibly refreshing with this film in particular.
And it's again the difference between sophisticated writing of a sophisticated movie that happens to be a thing that you can bring your kids to and they'll enjoy lots of it.
Yeah,
There are laughs there for them. There are things to inspire them. There are things that they will be able to catch hold of and take. But that's no reason for the movie as a whole or in its totality to be confined within a movie studio's estimation of the psychology of the young.
Yeah, because what do they know, really?
Because, I mean...
about that.
Because the real fact about all kids' movies or adult movies that kids end up watching... or kids' movies that adults end up... The real fact of them is that there is stuff that is going over a kid's head, there is stuff that is going under the kid's head, and there is stuff that hits them right on the nose.
And one of my favorite experiences
and that's fine.
Watching films growing up is liking it on a certain level when I was a kid and then realizing a new layer when I grow up. And this movie will do that. I am sure. I mean, obviously I was an adult by the time it came out, but I mean, like, you know, if you, I would imagine this is one of those that if you saw it when you were 7, you'd grow up and you'd be like, oh, that's what it was talking about, or that's what that reference meant, that sort of thing. That's one of the great things about smarter kids movies, is that you grow up and you realize, oh, there's this deeper layer, there's the subtext, you know. They're not going to get, a lot of kids might subconsciously sort of understand some of what it's thematically getting at, but I mean, like, you know, the whole what is anyone can cook really mean thing, you're gonna grow up and have this like, oh, that's what that means.
And our ability as adults to receive these things from our stories, in part, is the flowering of a seed planted when we are exposed to these stories when we're young and don't get it yet.
Yeah.
It's that experience that lays something that in us as we grows into the ability to receive such messages. And when you don't allow the young to have these experiences that are beyond them, they don't grow into people who will get them when they're older. They grow into people who as adults still don't get it. And you have met them and so have I. The conversations I've had with perfectly grown adults who just think the Harry Potter movies are horrible because they have all this magic in them.
Yeah, and they're not looking at what they're really about, right?
And that's an inability to perceive what the thing is really about because we're blocked at a superficial level.
Sure.
The ability to see into that begins when you're a 4 or 5, 6-year-old kid watching a movie like this that has that. And we assume it goes right past us, but something is going in there and is going to stay in there. And it's one of the reasons art is so terribly important.
Yeah.
And one of the features of all the great art that's ever been, soapbox. That's not a food reference at all.
No, it's not. No. You missed your mark there. Apple crate?
Maybe I should wash my mouth out.
Apple crate. That's another thing you say.
Apple crate.
Apple crate.
But the great art in every medium has this ability to reach us and then reach us again when we're at a different point in our life.
Yeah.
The great movies, you can watch again later and still get something out of it. The really great movies you can watch again and again and again and still.
And I've said this about movies like
from them.
I've said this about movies like Fight Club that you know, some movies require you to watch them more than once.
Yeah.
That like there's so much going on that you need to really think about and to appreciate that like you know you need a couple of viewings to really examine them and like you know a thinking person that at least got something out of it the first time will be willing to do that, right?
And two, from the most unimaginative marketing perspective imaginable, man, file that one.
Did that sentence really just come out of your mouth? That was
from
great.
The most unimaginative marketing perspective imaginable, from a boardroom, hardcore, business is God perspective. You're gonna
do you
make
remember
a
that
movie.
Muppet sketch?
Yes, I do.
Business.
Yes, you're making a movie. It's expensive. You want 1 million people to go to buy a ticket.
Right, sure.
That means you need lots of different people of different ages, of different
persuasions,
of different backstory to come and be able to get this thing. And that is not unconnected to that thing being a thing that those same people can grow 10, 15, 20 years older and watch again from a different place in their own life and still find something of great value there.
Yeah, of course.
Great art is great business.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more.
And
we're standing on the same apple crate.
Did we not start this whole series with that?
I think we did. And you know, I want to segue.
We're still there.
I want to segue now, going back to the movie.
We're still eating that cake.
I want to segue now. By the way, there is a segue in the film. I want to.
That was a food reference.
Or actually, well, no, it wasn't a segue. It was just a
scooter.
A skateboard. Yeah, and it was we had a scooter. Well,
right.
but anyway, no, I want to segue into back into the film and talk about going from what you were talking about into what the movie's actually about, because I think it's really interesting some of the themes and ideas in this that are kind of not just calling back to some others that we've talked about in the past with other Pixar movies, but building on them. There is some of the same ideas, though I think it goes in different places, being discussed here as in Incredibles, because this is another movie about talent and ability. Yeah. And I once again, they've got a really good handle on what to say to kids about those things. Stuff about natural talent, versus like we have a human being in this movie with Linguini who is good at nothing and is entirely endearing. I think that's brilliant.
And who learns? Who actually learns?
Yeah, of course. But I mean, like, he's not great because he can cook. Yeah. In fact, he can't.
He has no features to.
Yeah, he has no natural talent, but we like him for other we like him for other reasons. Because he's trying. He's not a passive character. He's doing his very best. He's also a flawed person. He does begin to develop an ego, just because people start actually paying attention to him when they've never done that before. And I think any of us is
never had a chance to drive this car before.
Yeah, exactly.
That wasn't a food reference either. That was a Cars reference. Which movie are we doing?
Yeah, you're having a tough time with all the food with the food thing.
I'll give this movie that as well, because food for me is a subject that is of almost zero interest.
I wanted to ask you about that. Yeah, because I know you're not a food guy.
A food movie for me is like a movie about classical music to Kansas state politician. Yeah.
Yeah.
No contact. No hookup.
But this is a movie about passionate people who are inspired by whatever it is their passion is, and the whole message of anyone can cook being that, and they spell it out at the end, but I don't think it's in like a really heavy-handed way. I kind of actually appreciated the way they did it, about the idea being that anyone can do it, but it takes it takes taking risks and being passionate enough to be great at something. And what I'm saying is, I think you probably appreciated this movie despite the food thing, because put anything in there. It doesn't have to be food, right? It could be music. It could be art. It could be anything.
Because the real answer is that it's not a movie about food. It's about
passion.
These people and these rats learn about themselves and about each other and do. And the conceit is elsewhere.
Yeah, it's built around that. And then at the same time, it's sort of like lore in a just the look. I don't mean this Star Trek lore. It's sort of
Greetings, dear brother.
I can do that like weird facial tick thing. It's sort of like mythology or lore.
I think you mean it is.
In something more like would you stop that? In something more like fantastical or a science fiction sort of thing, where there's a conceit, there is a theme that it's about more than that. It's larger than that. You could insert anything else in there, but then inside of that, when you get into the nitty gritty, you get into the details. There's plenty of stuff there too for people that are interested in food. I mean, like it is a good food movie.
And
even
they're
on
gonna get
top
that
of
stuff
that.
right.
Yeah. And they do, as far as I can tell. But and I mean, like you said while we were watching it, I mean, obviously they hired a chef to make these things, and
they got. I can never remember who it was, but he's pretty famous, and he's from one of these big chef competition show type things.
Oh, really?
He's somebody who people who really did care about food, if I were to drop his name, they wouldn't recognize him.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I don't remember his name.
Well,
I don't care.
Well, that's okay.
That's not my tamale. But no judging.
But anyway, just
but here again.
Yeah.
One of the things these guys are so good at as storytellers is knowing the difference between a concept and a conceit.
Right.
put that on my tombstone.
Let's
That's a kind of pizza.
let's talk. Stop it. Let's talk a little bit about the critic thing at the end, because like I said, that really hit me in a place. I really enjoyed that we have this guy that naturally, because it's playing on your expectations. Yeah. Movies need to keep in mind that people have seen movies before.
Yes.
One of the best ways that we can subvert a person's expectations and wow someone, not just with plot twists, not being gimmicky, not being sensationalist, just like doing something that you won't expect, is to set it up with the thing that these kind of movies always do. Yeah. So naturally, we have this really creepy critic guy, and
boy, is he!
And the profession makes a lot of sense. That's a guy that could take down a business. Yeah. So you have this creepy critic guy whose like office is shaped like a coffin, whose body is shaped like a casket. From
the side, he looks like a vulture.
I didn't notice this the first time I watched it. His typewriter is shaped like a skull, dude.
Skull face on his typewriter.
Yeah, so they are telegraphing really hard. This is
he's British.
Most evil critic imaginable, and British people, evil villains are always British. So, but a lot of them. So, the thing is, you expect this guy is going to be the big antagonist. He's going to bring the whole thing down, and he's set up to. What I love is, it's not this easy red herring where, it's actually some other guy. There really kind of are two villains for a minute. It's that he gets rehabilitated. He gets changed for really good reasons. And what I like is he's not only put in a position where he's forced to look differently at this restaurant, where he's forced to look to realize that sometimes like something isn't just what it looks like from the package. You can't judge a book by its cover, and so he comes to appreciate that line from Gusteau he always hated. Anyone can cook. He learns what it means. That's why I like how it's spelled out.
It's his discovery of it that lays it out for us.
But more than that, he learns how close he is to his own profession. I love that. He learns the problems with the way that a critic can look at the world and be too ultra critical. It's not. And I love that he says negative criticism is fun. Look at
it's fun to write and fun to read. It's
fun to write and fun, and I love that he puts it that way, that blatantly, because it's true. You look at James Ralph, you look at Nostalgia Critic. I like some of these guys, and most of what they do is find things they think are really bad and just rip into them. But that's not all criticism is about.
To watch.
And I'm also not saying that those guys are incapable of doing more well-rounded reviews. They have. I'm not calling them out. These are guys that I actually appreciate. But you especially Ralph. I never got super into Nostalgia Critic, but I get that guy. But anyway, but what I'm saying is, it's easy to lose perspective.
Yeah.
And isn't it cool that first thing he says is, I'd like some perspective.
Perspective.
And guess what? He gets it. How great is that? This movie calls out everything that's wrong with modern criticism. Why is this movie suddenly about criticism? I love that. But of course, it's a food movie.
It's about everything.
Yeah, it's about everything.
And they're so good.
Boy, that hit me in a place. Yeah. Stay objective. When something really is good, you have to give it that credit. And I also love that he says the critic's job is in many ways easy, because, and remember, this is a movie about taking risks. The big thing, the big thing that both of our protagonists have to learn is when to take risks, but also when not to. Remy's is when do I don't, and Linguini's is when do I. I think those are all kind of mirrored arcs there, right? And the critic must take no risks because what what does he have to lose really? And then at the end, he loses everything, and he finds a better life through it. Oh boy, I could write a whole paper on that guy. Isn't that great?
Yeah, there's so many characters that you could.
Oh, I love that. Anyway, that was the big thing I took from it.
This is what good storytelling does. It gives you things to choose from.
Yeah. You or I could pick one thing and roll with it because it's doing so much.
And as always.
But it's not a
Pixar,
pretentious
very good.
movie either.
No.
It's fun movie. I don't think it's super heavy or anything. It's just that like you don't have to think real hard to enjoy it. But boy, if you do, there's more there.
Yeah, and
That's what layered fiction does, right? You can enjoy it on multiple levels.
Exactly, and if you bring deeper thought to it, you will be rewarded for doing so. If you don't, that you're not frozen out in the cold.
No,
But
there's a fantastic chase sequence in this.
if you open,
But it serves the story, yeah. So there's stuff there for everybody.
It's not just frosted onto there like icing. Or those little sprinkly things. And as always, Pixar are very good with the setup and the payoff and the surprise
layered,
linkages.
like a cheeseburger.
Yeah, like a tort. I wish I'd brought my legal staff with me. They are always so good with the setup and the payoff. On this viewing, it struck me the freeze frame shot at the beginning, where we see Remy flying out of a window he's just broken through with the book. And then later on, Chef Skinner is bursting out the doors of his kitchen into the restaurant floor and freezes. And you have the same expression, you have the same pose. Just these two moments between those two characters of all people.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Just a little visual parallel.
Well, and the question is, what does it mean? These are snapshots of this is the moment where people's lives change.
Yeah. I need
They don't
to
know it
rethink
yet.
my life. Clearly, at that point, Skinner needs to rethink his life, and he does not do so, and it's to his cost. But even down to little things like that, to the fact that we see the poster with the picture of the health inspector long before he actually figures into the story in any way.
Yeah, I really like that. The attention to detail in this is monumental. I find myself really impressed a lot of times with Pixar films, but I think this one especially with just how much detail is put into a room, and it feels almost live action. There are places in this movie where I have to remind myself that I'm watching something animated because it's hard to get to wrap my mind around the fact that somebody had to put all that stuff in there. Yeah. Somebody not only had to go out and find things and put them on like mantles and stuff like you would in real life, but actually had to animate them and create them and put them in there. I
study the way light reflects off of them so as to model them.
Yeah, I don't think Pixar animation has ever superseded this, right? I mean, has ever gone farther than this. We've had other great animated Pixar films since this. I mean, WALL-E is a gorgeous movie. Monsters University is a gorgeous movie, but I don't think any of them are better than this.
They are pretty careful not to do the same thing twice.
Well, that's true too. Yeah, but I just mean that level of detail.
To subvert the comparison. But
Boy,
the detail is great. And the little things like Skinner leaning on this stack shelfy thing in the kitchen, and it rolls away just a bit as he leans on it.
Yeah. Which is something that is amazing that anybody even thought to put that in there, right? I think that it's really cool that and it's almost like they put up a sign and said hey guys, this is more impressive than maybe even you realized, and frankly they've earned that. Yeah. That at the end, there's a certain amount there's a certain amount of super confidence and maybe even a little bit of arrogance that I'm going to let you have when you do something that amazing. That you get to the end of the credits and they put up a thing that says basically, just so you know, we didn't. Yeah.
100% pure animation. Yeah. No rotoscoping used.
Yeah, there was no rotoscoping. I forget what it actually read. But they didn't. I don't think they said rotoscoping.
It was like a little. They did.
Oh, did they say that? Good. Because it looks rotoscoped in places, and I think that they finally have perfected.
In the best sense.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Well, rotoscoping is a cool is a cool process.
It doesn't always end up looking great.
But. No, but there are examples where it did.
Good uses of it.
I still say the Fleischer Superman cartoons look amazing. Yeah. There are and of course they're the guys that invented it. But the thing is, this movie, I think, finally for Pixar perfected how to do human beings, because and it's really interesting looking at these going up through the series that we've been doing, where like they were avoiding it real hard. They didn't want to show faces in Toy Story very much, stuff like that. And then you get to this where those little nuances are all there, where it feels like you had physical actors that were actually doing things. I don't think you could have made it look any better by rotoscoping. So I love that they mentioned that, and I think you could almost get away with making this movie live action. I mean, the rat stuff's hard, but other than that, I mean, like it doesn't feel like a premise that is a cartoon premise.
Cartoonness is not what the movie's about.
I mean, I'm glad we didn't go with... I mean, obviously, this Pixar, this wouldn't have happened, but I'm glad that this wasn't like a story that somehow another studio did where you had like a CG rat with actual physical humans.
Oh, yeah. It would have been horrible.
But,
I think that would have been horrible.
But yet I can kind of imagine it just be, or at least with the humans, just because they... I mean, obviously, they're stylistic, they're stylistically designed, but they move like people. A lot of attention to
the shape.
Yeah. And of course, Paris is always a cool place to set things because it's just freaking gorgeous, and they really capitalize that on every chance they get. Let's quickly talk about the weirdness with Paris. The accents, shall we?
Yeah, that was something that I won't say it disturbed or took me out of this movie when I've seen it, the times I've seen it, which has been several, but always left me wondering. Because I could easily see how the rats and the humans not having the same sounding speech at all would make perfect sense.
Well, importantly, the rats don't even know they're in Paris.
Well, they aren't at the beginning. They're from out on the countryside, but in France.
Oh, okay, that's
But I mean,
I was just thinking that line where he says I was in Paris this whole time, but I guess he just means while he was while he was in the sewer. Yeah.
Yeah, he flowed down a river, fell into a grate,
okay,
a sewer, and
so they would know they were in France, probably.
Yeah, but I mean, how much do rats really know about geography?
Well, and also, to your point, they're not like actually hanging out with humans, and in fact, they're the father expressly forbids it. I may not get a chance to say this later because because we're almost out of time and we've kind of finished the thematic stuff. But I forgot to mention how much of a father-son story this is, and like a dual father-son story, and it's really interesting how like the Gusteau is sort of father to both of them in a really weird sort of way, but then like the
what a device.
The rat father ends up kind of coming around at the end and stuff, and like anyway, I wish I'd thought to talk about all that.
Hallucinagusto.
Quick footnote, because that's another thing I'd love to analyze that we just don't have time for. But anyway, just want to throw that out there. But anyway, so the accent thing.
Yeah. And a lot. Now the kitchen staff, we're told, is kind of an international bunch, and so they have different accents, and that makes perfect sense. Ego, the critic, is clearly British. I don't know if there's any particular logic to that other than the fact that villains should have British accents.
I think that's all trying to subvert our expectations.
Eviler.
And maybe they just really, really wanted Peter O'Toole.
And can't blame them. Especially the job he did with this.
And he just passed away recently.
Pity to have lost him.
Yeah.
And two, you have a movie that is set in France, which means these people really should be speaking French to each other and not sound like they have any kind of accent at all.
True.
So nobody having an accent would be justifiable.
That's true.
For me to hear them as normal talking Americans would in one way be realistic, since they're all French and they live in France, and hearing each other speak.
And then if you just dubbed it in
normal.
French for France, they wouldn't even notice it.
Yeah.
Unless it just didn't line up right.
But the decision is made instead to give many of them noticeable French accents to varying extents. Okay, I mean that helps put me in this place that is not my home, and still understand the dialogue. Although, in one way that's realistic, and another way it's not.
Yeah.
But
I don't understand the logic though of who gets an American accent, who gets a French accent, who gets a realistic French accent, who gets more of a cartoony sounding French accent. Because there's every degree of that, right? And I mean, like, I'm with you. I didn't even notice it the first time around. Like the first time I watched this movie, never even entered into my brain. And this time I was like, I'm an idiot. Why does the main character, who, as far as I can tell, has lived in France his whole life, doesn't speak with a French accent while everybody else? I don't understand that. But then what I find very curious about it is that it in no way whatsoever impacts the story. It in no way whatsoever impacts
it's
my...
It's not a plot point. It's not a story point.
But weirdly, like things like... I have been hung up by things like this before where it damages credibility. But here, I didn't even when I noticed it, I didn't find myself constantly thinking about it beyond it just being a slight curiosity. It didn't hamper my experience in any way.
And the most outstanding figure in that on that subject is Linguini himself.
Right.
And I don't know if maybe his completely un-European sound is a way of marking him as such a fish out of water in the restaurant kitchen environment, or whether it's just a comment on how Americans really are stupid.
Which is weird, though, because he's not American.
Except he's not, but he sounds like one.
Yeah. I could see that if it was French people making the movie and they wanted to make a comment about Americans, but the fact that it's Americans making a movie about France, I don't really know why that would be a symbolic thing. I have a tough time with buying that as the explanation.
And maybe it's not the Americanness of him as much as his general awkward and inarticulateness.
And it's just easier to do that as an American. Yeah.
And you hired, what is it, Ray Romano?
Was that Ray Romano? Yeah, okay.
Somebody Romano. That, to do his voice the same way Larry the Cable Guy does Larry the Cable Guy as Mater.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, you get the same way Phil Harris does Phil Harris as Baloo the Bear.
Yeah, you're not getting somebody to do a voice at all. You're hiring the person that's right for that part.
Yeah, and... it works. It works fine. It's something that always left me kind of wondering. Huh.
Well, John Goodman's not doing anything beyond just a straight-up John Goodman, really, when he's doing Sully.
Sully is John Goodman.
Yeah.
Because Mike really is Billy Crystal.
Except Billy Crystal does a bit of a voice for Mike, but
to some extent,
yeah. It's a little higher pitched, but
he's not Billy Crystal in the same way that Miracle Max is Billy Crystal, but he is Billy Crystal.
Yeah, and then you look at like Buzz Lightyear. That's a slight voice, but not much of one. And so
it's certainly Tim Allen from the Tim Allen Show.
Yeah, but even still, it's got more gusto. I'd say it's like him doing the voice he was doing in Galaxy Quest when he was actually playing the captain.
Yes.
Like that's what that was.
It's another corner of the same tetrahedron.
But anyway, yeah, I think that's interesting. I'd like to know what the thought process was behind that. But the thing I find, like I said, most interesting is that it doesn't bother me.
No. I was talking to someone who had spent a lot of time in France, who actually did comment, and I quote, "The funny thing about the French, they all talk with a French accent."
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
Couldn't that be said of any people?
Yeah, I didn't have the chance to press him on the point. I really wish I could have asked him, did the Germans all...
Did they
have
speak German accents? Yeah. Or when they were speaking German, did they sound entirely American to you?
But then again, a lot more people in Western European countries speak English and therefore would have that accent when they did.
True.
Than Americans speak any language other than
English.
TV.
That's hilarious. Was there any other topic we should bring up at all? I mean, there's tons of stuff we could go into that I'm sure we didn't, but anything you specifically really wanted to go into?
Talking animals, accents, food, driving in Europe.
Anyone can cook.
Anyone can cook.
By the way, how cool is it that we sort of kind of get to know this Gusteau guy, and he's dead the whole movie?
Yeah.
And
he's quite a character for being dead.
And also, he's a figment of a rat's imagination through a lot of it, so you never really get to know the real one, and yet he has such a presence with the restaurant and with all of these people who were affected by him that you do feel like you know him at the end.
Like, they could have chosen to say, this really is the ghost of Gusteau.
I'm glad they didn't.
And it would not have changed the story in any important way.
Well, no, but that's true. Yeah, it wouldn't have. Sure.
Or that...
But I also like that there were points...
That's allowed to be ambiguous.
But I also love that the ghost will point out, yeah, I don't know anything you don't know.
I mean, he makes that
expression. It's very smart that way. Yeah.
This used to be my office.
But yeah, this is one of those that I don't think to go back to, but then I finally sat down and watched it again and went, no, this is definitely one of their best efforts.
It's a brilliant movie in so many ways.
Well, next time, Geoff...
I'm feeling it.
You can play with the sign next time if you want to.
Okay.
I need to get you in on one of those reviews. I think that would be really fun. So next time we're going to be talking about WALL-E. Hopefully, and by the way, I can't wait to do that because it's been a while since I've seen that one too. And I know when that movie came out, I got really giddy that they were doing futuristic science fiction, and I got to see how Pixar would what their take on one of my favorite my favorite genre of all time is and
talk about setting
a
challenge to yourself in storytelling.
Oh yeah, man, and I mean like we're pretty much gonna just do Asimov in a Pixar movie. Let's see how that works. It's yeah, cool. So anyway, that's gonna be fun to talk about. I'm looking forward to that one, and hopefully we can do that sometime soon. Hopefully it's not a few months in between, because we're kind of on Christmas break right now. So hopefully we can make that happen.
No place like home for the holidays.
Well, Geoff, thanks again, man.
Gravy.
And like I said, come in for another review. Come see a new movie with me and do a feeling it review. That'd be great.
Absolutely.
Well, anyway, thanks again, everybody, for watching. Sure hope you enjoyed our long analysis on Ratatouille, and we'll talk to you later. I'm Captain Logan.
Ho, ho, ho! And I'm the Geoff.
Bye.